to be for informational purposes only. This information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing, and the information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Now, because of these differences, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning.
Inheritance tax for the state of Pennsylvania. I know that a lot of folks have to deal with this from time to time. So what should we keep in mind and what should we know?
Yeah, inheritance tax is a topic that often comes up both during the estate planning process and also whenever I meet with families who have lost loved ones and are entering into the estate administration process, probate. And Pennsylvania is one of I don't remember the exact number, but not every state has an inheritance tax. I think there's about 20 states, maybe 21 states that have inheritance tax laws, and Pennsylvania is one of them. And the tax, so it's essentially a tax to the beneficiaries of an estate on the estate property, the distributions that they receive from the estate. But as a practical matter, usually the tax is paid from the estate itself prior to the distributions being made. Pennsylvania has it has a structure where there are three different rates for taxes. Actually, four if you count property passing between spouses. Property between spouses is taxed at a rate of 0%. So that's one really nice thing. Whenever we're planning, doing estate planning, or whenever, a surviving spouse comes in and says, I just lost my husband, I just lost my wife, what's the tax burden going to be here? Usually when the first spouse passes away, all of the property is going to the surviving spouse, and I can usually tell them, that they don't have to worry about inheritance tax, which is really nice.
But if you're going from a parent to a child.
Correct. So, and that's where the tax starts to come in there. So if the rate between parent and child is 4.5%. Okay, so not a super high rate, and I'll talk about in a second exactly what's taxed. But 4.5% from parent to child. That rate also applies from child to parent. Or parent to stepchild, parent to adopted child, those kinds of things. The next tax rate is between siblings. So if you pass away and you leave something to a brother, sister, half sister, that is a 12% rate. So kind of a pretty big jump there. And then everybody else, when I say everybody else, that includes nieces, nephews, significant others that you're not married to, so long-time domestic partnerships, and all non-relatives, it's 15%, and that's the highest rate.
You ever think that the state will do away with that tax?
It's been, I don't know about do away with the tax, particularly given the budget situation that we're in, but that tax has been, they've jimmied with it over the years. This particular tax scheme has been in place since 2000. Prior to that, there was a 6% tax rate on lineal descendants, on parents to children, and there were some other things. So they've messed around with it. But this has been in place for 17 years now. Like I said, the really nice thing is that between spouses you don't pay tax, which I think makes sense and is really beneficial. But yeah, so there are these tax rates now. So the question then is, okay, so it's 4.5%, or it's 12%, or it's 15%. What is that tax applied to? All right. First of all, there are some things that are exempt from tax. Any distributions to charity, charitable organizations, are not taxed. life insurance. By and large, life insurance proceeds are not taxed. That's a really important one because that often can be a large part of the wealth that's being transferred from decedent, a person who's passed, to their beneficiary. So life insurance is not taxable. There are certain retirement plans that are not taxable, such as teachers' pensions, as an example, not taxable. But other than those limited exemptions, all other assets are taxable at the regular rates. But you apply the tax to the net value of the estate. So the state allows you to take deductions from, okay, and let's just make it really simple. Someone passes away and they have a house that's worth $100,000, and it's to go to their child. Say they have an only child, and the rate of the tax then would be 4.5%, so a $4,500 tax bill. But you get to subtract from that $100,000 any funeral expenses, any administrative expenses for the estate, including attorney's fees and accountant fees. You also get to subtract any debts that you have to pay, any debts of the person who passed away, including medical bills. So you apply the tax then. Let's say all those things come out to $50,000, okay, all those deductions. Then you're only applying the tax to a $50,000 estate, and the rate would be $2,250 rather than the $4,500. The actual tax would be. So you apply it to the net estate, and there are also some things that are exempt. So that's helpful.
So you have some property, you have a house, but you also have some funds in the bank. Maybe you have some stocks and bonds. That also is added into that total.
It is.
Right.
It is. Yep. Cash, equity in stocks, real estate, even the personal property, tangible personal property, things that, you have household items, equipment, lawnmowers, whatever it may be, vehicles, all of the assets of the estate, unless it's specifically an exempt thing like life insurance. All of those assets have to go into the calculation. And the inheritance tax generally is due 9 months from the date the person passes away. So that's kind of how long you have to figure it all out. And the attorney that you're working with on the estate generally files the inheritance tax return.
Right. They will take care of all that information for you because the average person has no idea.
Well,
right?
Well, they just don't deal with it every day.
Right. That's something that...
That's right. Another nice thing is, with regard to the deadline, so it's 9 months that you have to file the inheritance tax return. A couple of things, though. Number one is if you file it within 3 months, you actually get a 5% discount on any tax that's owed. So if you can... If circumstances with the estate are such that you can do things that quickly, that's nice. The other thing is if there are assets that need to be sold, particularly real estate, it's tough to sell real estate within 9 months sometimes, particularly in a market where property isn't moving that quickly. So the Department of Revenue will give you an extension if you have real estate on the market and you're actively trying to sell it, so that you don't have to come up with the entire tax bill prior to selling the asset that's being taxed. So that's another, can be a benefit.
Marshall Chriswell with us on this Monday morning. It's Marshall's Law. And Marshall, your phone number, if any listener would have a question or would like to find out more information about the inheritance tax, you can be reached at?
My office number is 724-465-5826. Online at www.westernpalawyer.com, or stop by and see me in the Atrium Building, downtown Indiana.
Now, we've talked many times about setting up a will. In setting up a will, that will help determine your payouts for your Pennsylvania inheritance tax, where that money will be going, right?
As part of an estate plan, we're going to be looking at, that's one of the things we'll be looking at, is what is the taxable estate, the likely taxable assets in the estate, and how are we going to handle that? And is, the question of whether there's federal estate tax involved as well, which usually isn't, except for the very, very valuable estates. But you've got to look at that and do some tax planning, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Has it been a busy summer for you?
It has been. It has been a very busy summer, and now transitioning right into fall. I don't know. It's really been quite a blur, but it's good. Busy is a good thing, and I'm just happy to be able to, to be helping out so many of the members of the community here in Indiana.
Now, your office is located at?
It's 665 Philadelphia Street, so it's the Atrium building, just a couple blocks down here.
And how big is your staff? How many people are helping you?
It's just myself and my assistant Melissa, who she's the face. Whenever you walk in, you'll usually deal with Melissa. But I am almost always there and available to speak with clients. I kind of pride myself on giving very personal service. If you're not dealing with a large staff where there many layers to get to me to ask me a question. So I do enjoy that.
Okay, Marshall Chriswell, Marshall Law. Nice to talk to you again. And, of course, you'll be back in a couple of weeks on Indiana in the Morning.
I'll be here.
All right, we continue with our Monday morning edition. We're going to take a look at more news. That's coming up in just a bit. We'll kick it off, and Josh Widdowson will be here with our Indiana County Report. Jack will take another look at those sports headlines, and we'll also throw in at no additional charge another rundown of our weather forecast. I'm Chuck Clark in for Todd Marino, and I will be back again tomorrow as well. We'll do it for a Tuesday, Indiana in the Morning, WCCS AM 1160 and FM 101.1.